Hey everyone, Allison here trying to answer what is proving to be, for the third time, a very challenging response to Chapter 29. I want to start with an assumption that jumps out first from the author, and the author does address this. One is that an increased middle class would bring, because of stability in the economic system, an increase in the middle class would create an opportunity for political stability. And the author mentions that there's an assumption that a stronger middle class would not support an Islamist party. Well, we see that there is support in several Arab nations that have a stronger middle class for conservative Islamist parties. She references Tunisia and Egypt and the Muslim Brotherhood. So there's an assumption that we have to deal with from the beginning. She states that if we were to hold free and fair elections right now across the Arab nations, that the Islamists would likely come to power. But then later on in her essay states that in most of these countries, Islamist parties don't get that much support or that many seats in a parliament if there is one. So there's some contradiction here that we have to work around. So we have to ask ourselves, if there is a strengthened middle class, would they not vote for Islamists? And would a rise of the middle class lead to gradual democratization? Ultimately, she says, there cannot be democratization without pressure from the West to for these nations to democratize gradually by increasing their economy and their middle class, and a gradual inclusion of political parties into their system. Now, what's interesting is she also acknowledges that non-Islamist political parties still remain on the periphery, that there's very little support for them, and if they are allowed to function, then they're not given unlimited access to the media or promoting itself to galvanize voters. So there's just this inconsistency with how political parties are allowed to even function, if they're allowed to function at all. She states that Islamist victories would decline if there was a greater freedom granted to non-Islamist parties. All right, so with respect to the economic portion of the question, the author states or challenges or creates an assumption that if there was a stronger middle class, we would be moving toward democratization and greater stability. What we have to ask ourselves then is, okay, even in free and fair elections with a stronger middle class and a stronger growing economy, would we see Islamist organizations freely and fairly voted into power? With respect to the second part, which is politics, we address that through gradual democratization by increasing the number by strengthening existing parties, increasing legislatures. She suggests keeping executive dominance as parliaments are allowed to grow and to strengthen while that transition occurs. She mentions the possibility of having prime ministers as well, and then after we see stability and democratization occurring, that there is an opportunity for free and fair elections. She states that this needs to happen sooner than later, because the longer an autocracy is in power, the less likely or even the less able it is to then push democratization. Again, she's saying that the West needs to intervene and push toward gradual democratization. So, something came to mind in another reading by Leon Trotsky, as an essay, a couple of essays by Leon Trotsky, and I cannot believe I'm about to quote him, but these two things that he said struck out to me, so I'm going to read them because I believe they apply and I believe they help me answer the question to the best of my ability. The first one is he's warning people and providing a way. He's acknowledging that there have been things that have happened in establishing a political system that has led to terrorism. So he deals with, just like this question, economic and political. The first one is, he says that the people were spiritually revolutionized before economic development of the country could give birth to revolutionary classes on which it could have counted for support. I think this speaks to Dr. Meredith's question and the point of the author, that to be revolutionized before there is economic development is to cut short the very support you're going to need to then create a political process. Now, he calls them revolutionary classes. I'm just going to say those who've not had a voice at this point, who would, like in the Arab Spring, were considered revolutionaries. Different purpose, but the same point. You have to have economic development if you want to be able to count on a support base at some point. The second one speaks to political development, and he warns against ideological evolution, leaving behind the political development of its country. Here, I think, is a second point made not only to what the author is saying, but it gives credence to making sure to the gradualization of the process, that it has to be gradual. If we run out one in front of the other, we risk leaving behind political development. In Trotsky's case, it was ideological evolution, which could even be construed as democracy itself or liberalization. Whatever ideology is out there, if we run forward with it and leave behind political development, if we leave behind economic development, we're going to see failure. In his case, he was saying it could lead to terrorism. So I hope this answers the question, Dr. Meredith. You have to have economic development. You have to have political development. You have to have these things working in tandem. It can't just be one or the other, or you lose a support base, or, as you've mentioned in other posts, people are not or the debate process, because it's so lengthy and because people perceive it as taking too much time, they're not patient for it. So I think the author has some assumptions that are incorrect, or at least proposes some assumptions that are incorrect with respect to the middle class and whether or not the Islamist Party would be unseated if there was a stronger middle class. This is tough to answer. I am falling back on Leon Trotsky a little bit here. I look forward to hearing your comments about this. I think this is a great opportunity to figure out what we know, which right now I'm not sure is enough for me anyway. Thanks, guys.